Hello and welcome to another surprise episode of the Boot Nerds podcast. Maybe not so surprising because there's been some boot news in the last couple days. Finally, because seems like there was like a 2-month period of nothing. But Jay, how are you?
I'm good, my man. Thanks. More and more just dad life is good. Bits of football here and there. United still suck. Nothing else is new. Weather in Denmark is turning good. Just to give you the regular weather update. How are things with you?
Everybody loves the weather updates. I think that's why when they tune into the Boot Nerds podcast. It got super hot here in like the last couple days, just out of nowhere. But otherwise,
we
I'm
can
okay.
complain about that too. I mean,
I have more things to complain about. My hip. I have a really bad hip problem right now, which is like big time old man problems.
Wow.
And can't get an MRI until like November, so that's great. But whatever, it is what it is. I'm functional. It just sucks. But other than that, pretty good. Can't complain too much.
Let me tell you, the whole body aching thing, it's only gonna get worse as you get older. Trust me. I mean, I'm coming up on 36, and I need to do so much stretching and like treat all these little niggles every time I just go and play a football match. It's just taking all the hits. It's
running hurts you.
Physical contact hurts you. I mean, but more so when you're 35 than when you're 22. I miss those days. Days, man. Yeah. And speaking of when you were, I mean, not exactly 22, but younger, we got a throwback to the younger days with the F50, and also, to the times of carbon fiber. There's a new carbon fiber sheriff in town, Ultra Carbon, and that's basically what we're going to talk about today. So just like go over that, give you our initial reactions, proper Boot Nerds podcast style, and just take it from there. See where life takes us.
Yeah.
I have no idea what episode this is, but if you're here, you probably don't care anyway. So maybe if you've seen the weather update, you're happy, you've dropped off. So
you've tuned out already.
That's what I came for. Bye-bye. But it was always going to be this time with an F50 coming back, an Ultra Carbon fiber really coming back on one of the big three brands. That it was always going to be a significant time, right? Mm-hmm. I don't even know where to start. I mean, probably the biggest news is that, and what came first was that F50 came back. Some teasing going on from Adidas' side. Obviously, I've known for a while. You have probably also known for a while. I mean, it's kind of been coming, right?
It wasn't their best kept secret, that's for sure.
Probably not. But anyway, F50 is back after a 9-year hiatus, and many things can be said. But obviously, bringing back the chameleon purple colorway as the launch model, a great idea. Idea. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think they nailed the look. There's no question about that. Although, when I first saw it, my initial impression was, yes, they do look like F50s, but they also really remind me of the 2010 RS7 rugby design. You remember those?
I remember those, yeah.
The stripes are pretty similar to that, which that was also a very good-looking boot. But
it was.
Yeah, I think Adidas, obviously this was planned for a long time, and I think it just, because of the timing of the success that they've had with the latest Pred and the return of the tongue and how well that's done for them, it definitely seems like they're a brand that is playing on the nostalgia side of things in terms of where the direction is going. But for a brand like Adidas that has like such a rich history of successful products that they, for whatever reason, just completely threw out the window one year, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to go in this direction. The question, I think, then becomes, especially 9 years later, how much of that original F50 Adizero DNA is still left in the football boot? Because Predators are one thing, that's a concept that will remain. It requires certain elements to be what it is, where I think speed boots have just changed a lot in the last 10 years.
I think, and it's a very good question, because obviously, this might as well have been called, the X Uber Speed 3000, and we would have been, oh, cool, new X. It's a very, very nice football boot, right? Because it technology-wise, it screams X. I mean, it is on paper an X with an F50 branding on. Let's not beat around the bush here, but that's not, to me, that doesn't really matter because you set F50 DNA, and I think you can argue both ways, right? But I think that what this does, that some of the X's haven't done, some have, but it's taken this like very minimalistic, super lightweight, barefoot approach that the F50 Adizero at least took from 2010 moving forward, right? And it's just run with that. And it's just said, okay, we have all these cool technologies. We know how to make a very soft textile mesh upper. We know how to work with the really light tooling. And we just have all these advancements on how to make a good last that fits really well. So it's not just it's not one of those speed boots that, early Adizeros, they took a little bit of sacrifice to just, to break it. Just like the early Vapors, right? It was part of the ritual when you got a pair of speed boots is that you got the lightweight feel, that super minimal feel, but it also, you had to live with the blisters and the discomfort because the upper material wasn't all that soft. Now it is. So I don't see any reason to like go back to the stiffer synthetics when they have an upper that is, I mean, I've worn this particular boot for a match and then the review. And it is so stupidly soft. My test boot, my whiteout test boot, is even softer. It's wildly good on foot, and just so I don't really care that it's not 1-to-1 with the 2014 Adizero. It's not hyper touch, but it's arguably softer. It's different, but it's from a pure pliability point of view. It's softer than that. And
I feel like we've talked about it. Yeah, we've talked about it on the podcast a few times where you look back on your favorites throughout the years, and I think your memory of something changes once you actually get the chance to try it on 10 years later. And I think the 2010 F50, for as impressive as it still is in hand, I actually have one.
Of course,
right here. It's still a super impressive.
Nice.
Yeah, right. So it's it's such a lightweight. As a product, I understand why it did so well back in 2010 because it just blew everything out of the water. It was so different than anything else you could get. But put this on your foot now, it's plasticky, it's rigid. The heel liner has no padding to it whatsoever. The sole plate is thin. You feel most of the studs under your feet. But I mean, compared to what the Superfly was at that time, this was considered super comfortable.
It was phenomenal, right?
Right.
And the Puma V110, the V111 SL had a pretty soft upper, but the V110 was stiff as a board. It was not very good. So yeah, the Adizero back then, the F50 Adizero was groundbreaking. But I agree that would you wear it today? I mean, arguably not. No. And even the later couple generations up until 2014, I'm not sure I will wear them. We did a shoot with a special player, and you'll see later why it's very special to me particularly. But we just talked about all the previous F50 generations, and I was just like, yeah, cool boot at the time, but nah, not today.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have this as Xy as it is. I was sat doing it in just thinking about it in my head. And I've always talked about how the 2014 F50 Adizero is one of my favorite speed boots ever, best Adidas speed boot ever. Until the XP Flow came about, that's up there with the 14 Adizero, and I think this completes like the holy trinity for me with Adidas speed boots. I would genuinely have a hard time choosing between this and the Speed Flow. I just put it on the other day. Still phenomenal, by the way. But I can't tell. I like them. I like them a lot. There are some issues. Cool. The outsole. It could be snappier. It could be stiffer, and the stud shape is not as aggressive as I would personally like it to be. I'm kind of. I get the feeling that, I also said in my review, I get the feeling that Adi really knew this would be extremely popular. So just like the Mercs have maybe tried to appeal to a slightly wider audience, make it a little less extreme.
I think what I like about their approach to this reintroduction of F50 is the simplicity side of things. Because at the end of the day, this boot was as successful as it was and as light as it was because there's not a lot happening.
Oh, yeah.
It's just really thin and simple. And I feel like I love the fact that it's using a single lace hole setup. And it's still kind of a one-piece upper, but it's not. I like the simple cut, just keeping it low. Obviously, there's a bit of an abandonment in terms of continuation of what the X was on with the sole plate and not having any kind of plastic or carbon plate for the sake of that spring back. But that's also something that adds weight and thickness to the outsole, where, again, what made the F50 what it was just how thin and minimal everything across the board was. The comment that I've heard a lot in terms of like the enthusiast community, I'm not sure that there's a huge wide demand for this, is will they bring back a leather version? Because obviously we're getting a laceless F50 for pretty much the first time since the Tune-It days. But a leather model, I could see them doing it as a limited edition release down the line, but I don't see it being an inline thing anytime soon.
I mean, I'd rather not comment because even confirming or denying would be like saying too much. But you know, this is what we have right now. I wouldn't expect them to go big on leather. But having like something, you know, a limited edition, as you say, tapping into what they did with those whiteout Adidas Zero 2014 remakes that they did would be very interesting. But whether that's something they want to explore, I don't really know. I would advocate for it. We'll take 10% if that happens, obviously. What I will say, you mentioned with the tooling, right? Not having the extra Carbitex or the plastic insert in there. I'm going to miss the X Crazy Fast Plus for what it was. Because for me, the X Crazy Fast Plus was an F50 in disguise. That was just called an X. Because it did everything right, basically. And I wouldn't have cried about having that tooling on the new F50. I'm glad that we have like the flat toe back. I like being close to the ground as much as I enjoyed, you know, rolling onto the foot and all that. It was cool, but I don't mind this either. But I'm missing that, you know, the rigidity in the tooling from the X Crazy Fast. So it is what it is. It is what it is.
And I think responsiveness to a sole plate, which kind of transitions us into the next boot we're going to talk about, is at the end of the day, I think it's a perception element more than it is a performance element. Because like, while I could put on a pair of Speed Flows when they first came out, introducing that carbon plate, and you could feel there was something at the bottom of your feet that other football boots did not have. Can I truly say that the energy return that I was getting was improving speed, agility, acceleration, whatever it was? No, I can't say that. It was a feel that I liked, but does that relate to actual performance? That, again, I think it's a perception thing. It's just like the importance of how light your boots are. A 6-ounce boot feels lighter than a 7-ounce boot, but is that 20 grams really that important? Probably not.
It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, you're right. And we've been talking about this ever since Ghost came with Carbitex, right? But for me, you know, this is 209 grams in the size 42, and I almost called it the Adidas Zero, but the F50 Elite is 183 grams in in a size 42. So there is a significant difference, and the F50 feels lighter, and I like that, you know, the little mental boost that we've talked about so many times. But will it truly matter? No. Will this make you faster if you're not a fast player? No, but will it give you that roll you onto it for give you that sensation of being, you know, utilizing your energy output to the fullest? Yeah, you could argue that, and this is where I think the Ultra Carbon has something going for it, right? Because it is just extreme. It's dedicated, and it will put a lot of people off. I'm not gonna lie, because it does many things that some people just will feel is too extreme. But, you know, full carbon fiber tooling, it's been in the works for 3 years. They've tested it in numerous places, obviously, in facilities as Loughborough University. Not that it validates or devalidates anything, but, you know, they've really done their work here. We saw a prototype a long time back and we're just like, this has potential because this is wild and it is hardcore and it is wicked. And now they've made it happen. And I love it. I absolutely love that they've just gone, all in on this. Because it is stiff. This snapback is ridiculous. I mean, absolutely, utterly ridiculous. The studs could kill a man. But the grip you get from these, the bite, it's phenomenal. I've just recorded a video comparing the F50, called it the X, the F50 and the Ultra Carbon, where I said that, this is one of the boots that have put the biggest smile on my face in a while, because it's just so, holy shit, this is insane. And when you combine that with an upper that is, it's soft. It's this textile mesh too. It's really soft when you break it in. Nice shape to it. Much better heel than the previous Ultra Ultimate, which is good because that sucked. You just have this like speed machine that just it wants one thing, and that is to just tell your brain that something fast is happening. And are you gonna go faster? No, probably not. But it's gonna give you the sensation that you are given those extra couple of percent. Yeah. And I'm vibing with it, honestly. I like it.
I think what I really appreciate about Ultra Carbon is it's always hard to say for the first time in a long time, because I think we work in this every day. We see so many football boots that even stuff that came out 6 months ago seems like it was a long time and you forget. But I would say that in recent years, it's one of the most extreme takes and commitments to a concept that we've seen in quite some time. I would say
I agree.
What has surprised me about Ultra Carbon, and just in terms of initial impressions, you order these online, you take them out of the box, what's going to be surprising to you? I think how stiff the sole plate actually feels in hand. If you want a rock solid base under your foot, there's nothing that even comes close to this. It is. I'm shocked at how stiff it is. I think the extreme, the extreme stud pattern is awesome. Again, it kind of reminds me back of like my childhood and the boots Puma was putting out at that time, with like V Construct and all that stuff. Like they really are doing. They're doing some cool stuff here, and there's no reason for brands to not try stuff like this. So I can appreciate that. The upper is way less Evo Speed SL than I think it comes across in pictures. Because I think that was my initial impression as well. I was like, oh no, is this going to be another one of those 10 games and it's no good anymore? That's not the case. It's way more solid than you'd expect it to be. But I think the disappointing part for a lot of people when they take this out of the box is I don't want to say that they feel heavy, but for how they look, they weigh a lot more than you'd expect.
But you'd expect something like, X Crazy Fast Plus levels of weight. That's what I expected when I saw these, when I first got them in hand. And I wouldn't say that 209 grams, it's not criminal, and it's not it shouldn't be a deal breaker, because the boot makes up for it in so many other ways in terms of feeling fast. But I just, it was definitely an, okay. Kind of experience to get them in hand for the first time and be like, oh, okay. Then I got them on my feet and I was like, okay. But it's a different experience. Obviously, they're also gonna make a regular Ultra Ultimate, which the world has not seen yet. It's gonna be a very good surprise as well. Really solid boot. But yeah, it will split opinion, but I like the fact that Puma are just going all in and say, okay, we're not going to play with trying to combat Nike with the Air Zoom unit in the Mercurial. We're not going to try and make this, I wouldn't call it more like generally appealing, but simple but effective F50 Adidas here. We're just going to do our own thing. We're going to do carbon. We're going to do it to the max, and we don't care. We're just going to do it. 280 euros, one of the most expensive boots we've made in a while. But screw it, because we can do it and we're dedicated to it. And I love that.
But I don't. And if anyone, I feel like we've just talking on the price really quick before we glance over it. I think we've had this discussion on the podcast so many times where brands outside of Nike and Adidas just can't afford to go up in price. But I think when you do something this extreme, certainly with the carbon fiber use, it makes it far more justifiable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's just if you're going to charge a premium, you have to offer something that you just cannot get anywhere else, and they've done that here.
Yeah. And also, it's fair because this, I don't know how much, but it had to be extremely, hella expensive to make and manufacture. And, the research and development and all that stuff, it's not easy. So for them to not go above 300 euros, I think is nice in itself. And I think it's just nice for people out there, the speed aficionados to have a couple of solid options. We have we've talked about this before, right? Speed boots that I love you see when you look at it, it's hard to show the camera, but you see the power tape in there in the midfoot when you look at it against the light. And then the little reinforcement in the forefoot as well. You can't see it on the camera. Sorry, guys. But it's a very intricately designed boot, and I think the thickness of the upper is good. It's at a good balance. But what I was saying was that we have all these, Mercs. Are they like the hardcore speed boots that they used to be? Probably not. F50s, also especially with the outsole, they're trending a little bit towards it. They're appealing, opening their arms to like that middle section, right? What are they called? What's that word? The middle, I can't remember the word, but you know what I mean. And Ultra Ultimate, it wasn't really all that good. The Furons, they also want to be a little bit more extreme, but we're missing that, the end of the spectrum, the very side of the spectrum speed boot, and this is what we got.
It feels like the extreme take that early Superflies were.
Just not crap.
Just because Superfly 1, 2, and 3, we can look back fondly on those, but they're really, really bad. Also,
but this is probably what the Superfly should have been.
Yeah, and speaking of Nike, it's probably one of the weirdest launches for them, and I don't really like any brand doing this, but we've technically seen what's next for the Mercurial series. They've shown it, but we just don't have it yet. And I think, and I'm seeing a lot of comments about people saying Nike is losing this battle especially with the launch of F50. And I don't know, it's a bad look, I think, for Nike at this point, in that everyone has seen what's coming. We don't know anything about it yet. We've just seen it, and people are not excited about it. That's surprising.
Yeah,
I know, Jay. You're very handcuffed here, but it's kind of a weird one, and I'd be curious to know, just in the comment section, having seen what we've seen, if you're picking a speed boot this year based on nothing, what are you picking? Not you, the audience.
I've not seen anything. Be excited. I mean, but yeah, it's a tricky one. And right now, obviously the focus is on F50 and Ultra Carbon. That's just the way it's going to be. And 2024 is going to be a strong year. You'll understand when it drops, but it will be, it'll be strong.
Cool.
Strong year.
Yeah.
Strong year.
2024, year of the speed boot.
Absolutely. And we've said this a couple of times before, but I feel like they just keep raising the bar, and I'm happy with it. Any negatives on like F50 coming back or Ultra Carbon coming out? It's not all positive, is it, right? Obviously there are some flaws with this, and there are some flaws with this, and obviously you can go and check out the reviews on Unisport. Shameless plug. You will have some videos on it too, I'm sure. Any negative reactions?
I think with F50, the thing that's lost for me and what made the first several so successful was the incredibly lightweight construction that they had. And I think my disappointing aspect, seeing what they weigh, and it's not that they're heavy by any means, but given what we did get with Crazy Fast Plus, and knowing that they're totally capable of making something OG F50 light, for them to not necessarily do that with this new model, I think is a little bit disappointing. And then again, same thing with the Puma. I think everybody would expect something lighter than these are. Like when you consider, based on how this looks, that this is pretty well the same weight as a Predator with a fold over tongue and an elastic strap, that's crazy. Not that those are heavy boots, but you just wouldn't expect these to be in the same weight class as those.
No. And obviously it's going to be an entirely different beast when you then take it to the pitch and you start running in them. But I get you. And that's... And you can argue, was F50 the right thing? Did they bring it back just for the lols and the nostalgia? And you could maybe argue, but also then again, was it a really stupid decision to retire it back then? Well, yes and no, because everything needed a reboot back then for Adi. And if this 9-year hiatus is what it took for us to get to a new point where we can say, okay, we can confidently make a boot that lives up to everything we want to do with F50, and we can actually take this and build on it and take F50 into the future. That is something I'm okay with. And this is not your F50 from 2013 or 14 or 15. But I would reckon that if it had continued with F50, this is probably somewhere along the lines of where we'd be anyway with the silo. I mean, X has been F50 anyways. It's the same, right? It doesn't really matter other than hitting you in the fields, as I see it.
I think what's interesting with the direction of Adidas right now in general is this commitment to calling back to the past. Because at the end of the day, both new Predator and new F50 are in a lot of ways continuations of what they were already doing, with a design that definitely speaks more to what they were doing in the past. And there's so much hype around that right now. I think the long-term business side of things that I would think that could be an issue for them is how long does the nostalgia factor stay relevant? Where again, I think if you look at Puma and you look at Nike as their main competitors, those are brands that still seem, while they do their remakes, very committed to what's in the past is in the past, and this is our new stuff, this is our best stuff. Where Adidas, I don't know, it almost seems like they got to a point where like, all right, I guess we just can't convince people that this new concept is good. Let's go back to what we were doing before.
Call it
what
I mean? And no. It's like they had F50 in the bank for when they wanted to bring it back for a really cool product. And this might be the time, it's also 20 years ago since the first F50 came out. Cool. It all makes sense, but they have so many milestones with F50 that they could have done it whenever, basically. Right.
Yeah.
I think it's nice, but at the same time, I hope they also don't rest on the laurels and just, keep developing on the F50 to not just make it a nostalgia thing for the next 5 years, because then they're going to run out of ideas and people eventually will not care if the other brands keep innovating. But I'm pretty confident that they will not let that slide. I
don't think they'll make the same mistake twice.
No, probably won't. It's a good team down there. They know what they're doing, pretty clued in. So that won't happen again. I'm pretty sure about that. But obviously, there's going to be a lot more stuff coming. I'm really looking forward, as always, to also hear what. Obviously, now I've had my feet in these for a while. To hear what you think when you've tried both of them, and also to kind of take you guys through the next couple of things that will happen on the boot scene, but also what will happen with some of the other things that will be going on with the Ultra and the F50 silos, because they're only getting started, and that's the exciting part. We might be back sooner than expected. We might also take another hiatus, not for 9 years, but let's see. Let's see when we come back and have something to catch up on and talk about. Any closing remarks, Josh, before we...
No, I would just say for future episodes, I mean, obviously we'd love for you to interact on the topic of today's video, but if there's a specific topic you guys would love to hear us discuss, I mean, we're open to making episodes on really good ideas.
Yeah,
is
we love really good ideas. So leave them in the comments. Also tell us Which of these two you would be more interested in just picking up and wearing? Obviously, you can do so from Unisport, shameless plug, but that's a whole other discussion. Let us know in the comment section below. Ideas, go in the comment section below as well. We'll actually try and look at the comments and get back to you guys. And hope to see you again soon-ish. Good to see you again, my friend. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Let's not make it
been a little while.
Again. And take care. And we'll see you guys soon.
Cool. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Later.
See you guys later. Ciao, ciao.